This is my mouse, the Finalmouse Ultralight 2 Cape Town. It's a great mouse, don't get me wrong. It fits in my hand perfectly, it's light, and it never fails me whenever I'm playing games. Everything you want from a mouse. But there's one thing I really don't like about it. It's ugly. I guess I'm just not personally a fan of the color scheme that Finalmouse went for. The brown and ivory white just isn't my thing. It also doesn't match my setup's blue, pink, and purple theme. So that's why I decided to customize my Finalmouse Ultralight 2. I hope you enjoy the video. First thing on the to-do list is to brainstorm specifically how I'm going to spray paint the mouse. And I've created this Photoshop template to help me visualize how it's going to look. So this is the mouse, how it looks now. My first idea was to just spray paint the whole thing white. So instead of the weird pinkish white that the mouse has, I would just paint it completely just bright white, which would look better. And let's say I got a blue scroll wheel, a pink DPI button, and purple side buttons. So something like this was my original plan. And actually visualizing it in Photoshop, it doesn't look that good. It's not terrible, like I wouldn't be completely upset with this. It's way better than the original color scheme, but it's a little too much and it doesn't look that good. And now there's option B, which is just to make the shell blue and then make the scroll wheel just a simple white and then just leave it like this. I don't think this looks too bad, but it still doesn't look as good as I want it to. So I've had this idea that let's just say we make every little thing white. So I would make both the side buttons white and the DPI button, but instead of just a solid color on the front shell, I would do a gradient, something like this. Now, in my opinion, this looks sick. Now, the thing with this idea is that I have absolutely no experience in spray painting. And I know making a gradient isn't easy, but it just looks so goddamn cool that I'm gonna go for it. So yeah, this is the final idea I've decided on. It's going to be white on all the buttons and the scroll wheel, and then a blue to purple to pink gradient on the front shell. All right, let's do it. The first step in spray painting this mouse is going to be to just disassemble everything. So I'm gonna take off these paddings. Look how dirty that is. And just like that, now we have an empty mouse. And now we screw off the two screws in the bottom. Now we can just undo the shell and very delicately just place everything to the side. So now that I have each individual part, the front shell, the back shell, the side buttons, and the DPI button, it's time for sanding. And I decided to wet sand because a video I watched on YouTube told me this was better. So let's get started. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to look for whenever I'm sanding, but I think this is good. So there's the back done. Let's sand the little DPI button. DPI button is nice and smooth. I gotta be very delicate with the side buttons because they're very fragile. And now for the big boy, the front shell. Just gonna dip that in and start sanding. Okay, I've just finished sanding everything off and I think it looks good. It's hard to tell though because I've never done this before, so I really don't know what it's truly supposed to look like, but I don't feel any adhesive. All of that is gone and it feels smooth. So hopefully it all goes well. Let's go outside. If you're wondering which materials I used this primer, which is a layer before the paint, which makes the plastic more adhesive. I used this purple paint, this blue paint, this pink paint, this white paint, and to finish it off, this matte finishing. If you're wondering how my spray painting experience went, this clip perfectly summarizes it. Fuck, wrong paint. Yeah, it was a little bit of a mess. I had never done this before. I don't think I've ever held a spray painting can in my life, but I started with the primer. The footage got corrupted, so I can't show it, but then I moved on to the colors, starting off with blue, and then a couple minutes later I put the second layer of blue spray paint. It wasn't looking terribly. It was all right. I moved on to the purple, and this was sort of when I started to realize how tough it is to create a gradient with 3 paints. I was trying my best to sort of camouflage it in with the blue, and it didn't really look like a gradient, but it didn't look that bad. I wasn't upset. Yeah, it was looking all right. I then added the second layer of purple paint. The pink spray paint was an absolute mess. It didn't include a cap or whatever you use to spray the paint, so I had to use the cap from another can, and it didn't really fit properly, so it was just dripping all over the place, and it was just a nightmare. But I dealt with it, and this was the final result. One thing I did learn though was that I probably should have used gloves. It's been about 24 hours since I last painted the mouse, so let's go outside and take a look. Fingers crossed. So yeah, it looks pretty good. I didn't film this, but I did have to redo the little side buttons because they didn't turn out so well, but they look good now. And yeah, the mouse itself looks pretty good. Obviously a lot of mistakes, but I'm pretty happy with it. Let's go upstairs and put it together. Taking a closer look at the mouse, there is a lot I did wrong. I wish I would have bought more grades of sandpaper so I could have really, you know, gotten in it and smoothed it out, because there is a lot, I don't know if the camera's picking it up, but there's a lot of bumps across the mouse. But it's not the biggest of deals. It's not like, you know, it does look a little weird, but it's whatever. It's not the end of the world. The one big thing that I am concerned about that is going to harm the functionality of the mouse is that there is a lot of paint that got in between the buttons where you click. Right now they're not clicking because I have them taped up, but I am worrying that it's stuck, so I'm going to have to, you know, maybe with a little toothpick go in there and get rid of that paint. So hopefully the mouse still works, you know, properly. But yeah, I think it looks pretty good. Now before we put everything together, it's time for the cord and the scroll wheel. Putting this into this is just not okay. So I bought a new scroll wheel, and I also found a solution for the cord. First thing I'm gonna do is remove this this little cable thingy, and now we're going to take the scroll wheel out. Now what I did, which I learned from watching some YouTube videos, is that you can actually just remove this scroll wheel if I'm able to. You can remove this, set this aside, and buy some silicone little rings. Now these rings, which come in a variety of colors, I bought them on Amazon. By the way, everything I bought is going to be linked down below in case you're interested. I bought these little rings and they actually fit perfectly. The only one I need though is gonna be this just white ring, which should just perfectly fit into this, and boom, look at that. And now we can just very carefully put it back in. Now this already looks much better, but I'm gonna need a new cable. My original plan when I was planning out this video was to buy a custom paracord off of this website, which is pretty popular. But I thought, hey, that's more money. I've already spent enough money on paint and, you know, the scroll wheel and everything. So what I did is I took out my Ninja Air 58, which has been in the closet for a long time now because it has a broken scroll wheel. It doesn't work. But what I realized is that I could just use the cord from this mouse, this nice and blue cord, and just put it on the Ultralight 2. And now we just put the Air 58 cable into the Ultralight 2 base. I'm gonna set this to the side for now, and actually before we put everything together, I have to get rid of all the tape. I was supposed to use masking tape, that's what the video suggested, but I didn't have any masking tape, so I just used like packing tape, which I think, you know, still did the job. Not on the same level, but good enough just to protect the most important parts. Oh, this is gonna be so satisfying. Oh yeah. And just like that, I know it looks weird, but it's the bottom of the mouse. You're not supposed to look at it. And the reason you tape it off is to protect the little sensor. So yeah. So actually the first step is going to be to install this little DPI button. Should be pretty simple, just push and boom, there we go. Look at that. And now I'm going to put the side buttons. There we go, looking good already. And now we just place the board on top and tuck in the side buttons. Just like that, everything is in place. And the last thing we gotta do is just put the shell over the bottom and just snap it in, just like that. And this is the final product of my customized Finalmouse Ultralight 2. By the way, I did end up adding the paddings to this side. I wasn't quite sure, but I just did it, and I'm actually really happy with how it turned out with the padding. I will say though, the mouse got pretty stiff in the inside. A lot of paint got in some places where it shouldn't have. So I spent a couple hours today just trying to fix that, and it's still not completely fixed. I still have some work to do, but it works like 90% as good as it used to, which isn't perfect. It's not ideal, but it's good enough to use and to play games with. But I do have to go back and, you know, get rid of some of that paint that is touching with some of the buttons, which is causing them to be a little stiff. So yeah, this was definitely a learning experience. If I could go back in time, I would do so many things differently, but I am glad I did it. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching the video. All my social medias will be down below in case you're interested. I hope you have a good day, and peace out.